everybody. It's Paint. I thought I would do a little video today because I've been seeing a lot of posts about Autism Awareness slash Acceptance Month. And I just wanted to kind of like share a little bit about the emotions that is initiating in me as someone who has been diagnosed in the last year. The first thing I want to say is I think it is important to call this Autism Acceptance Month. Plenty of people are aware of autism and don't like it. There's a lot of hatred and vitriol, and so I don't think awareness is what we need. Acceptance is what we need, and that has been said by many autism activists and people within the neurodivergent community. And the preferred symbol is the infinity symbol to kind of represent the broader diversity. Using red, using rainbows, those are good. Using blue, not so good, because that is associated with Autism Speaks, which is a hate group that preaches for eugenics. So, now that we got that out of the way, what is my place and my process and who I am within the autism community and umbrella? So, this is very challenging for me to speak on because and it's very challenging for me because my trauma as an autistic person is not singular. My trauma coexists with other autistic people. And so my story in terms of how I have been affected by the abuse that is inflicted upon autistic children, and the autism community is interconnected with others. And those aren't my stories to tell. I can say that as an undiagnosed child, I witnessed abuse of other autistic people, and I witnessed abuse and the stigma towards both verbal and nonverbal people. And this had a very strong impact on me not wanting to be autistic. I can look back and I can very clearly see the evidence of it in my life. And this has been assessed, and I can say, yes, I am autistic, and yes, I have talked to doctors about it, and yes, they don't disagree with me, but they also don't confidently prescribe me. I'm kind of in this like limbo place in terms of diagnoses. And that's a little complicated, and I'll get into that in a moment. But first, I wanted to, so I did the story. It's not my story completely, and that makes it hard, because it's like I want to tell my story about what it is. I have touched on it before in some of my past writings and works. It's probably not something I'm ever going to touch on again in a public way. The details. I will just say that as a child, I witnessed abuse. And that influenced me. And I believe that contributed to severe mental health issues for me. That contributed to my psychosis. That contributed to my burnout. I have watched people die because they are autistic in my life as an adult. And so, what do we actually need? I think is a system that isn't predicated on like this bureaucratic system of proving struggle constantly. I think struggle is innate, and sometimes you have to just believe people, and I think that it's very dehumanizing to expect people to constantly have to outline the ways in which they struggle, because it forces us to be hyper focused on those struggles, and it doesn't allow us to grow and to thrive and to become better. And so, I'm put in this place of conflict of like, do I improve myself or do I regress? Because if I regress, that's the only way I will get support. But if the truth is, I can get support and I can improve all of my own initiative. But it would be very easy for outsiders to erase my autism, because I did a very good job of erasing my autism for them, for their benefit. And this resulted in my inability to communicate what was going on in my inner world, to the extent that it almost cost me my life. And so I look at this with a pretty heavy heart. And some other things that contributed to the shame about accepting myself as an autistic person was this forced visibility that I went through when I was turned into an internet meme at one time. And people were self-diagnosing me, outsider diagnosing me, armchair diagnosing me as autistic. And I didn't like having this narrative forced on me, especially one that I had rejected my whole life, having witnessed so much abuse of autistic people. And so to then be a person who's being abused, essentially, for being autistic, without the words to even claim that identity for myself, was very painful. And so, in a way, people defended me on the grounds that I wasn't actually autistic and therefore didn't deserve this abuse. I wasn't claiming to be autistic, therefore I wasn't faking it at that time. Those are some of the grounds that people defended me on, which is, again, very shaky ground, because that's not the truth. The truth is that onslaught of attention happened at the worst time in my life, when I had lost everything due to a sexual assault that was a situation I wouldn't have even been in had I had adequate resources in my life to be able to provide for myself, because I knew I couldn't take on extra responsibilities, and I knew I couldn't work quite full time, and I knew I couldn't do this because I wouldn't be able to do that and stay well without burning out. I would not be able to manage or balance that. And so, I compromised in living with someone else who ultimately caused a severe harm to me and removed one of my main tools of communication, which was writing. And so writing, for me, I was working on a novel at the time to kind of express and convey some of the things I experienced during my psychosis, and I was translating that into a narrative form to kind of communicate ideas and patterns about the world that I could see. And this novel was treated by medical professionals as kind of a manic fantasy, as opposed to a work of art or genius. Having never seen the work, having never put into context what the work was about or asking me about it, they just kind of assumed that it was under this umbrella of mania. And because I experienced a psychosis in my early 20s, I was treated as if anything I did that was expressive, that was energetic, that was hand flappy, that was stimmy, that was all bipolar. And so I couldn't just be a person in my own skin. So I was constantly at war with myself and my own creativity, because I was being told that my creativity was a symptom of a disorder. And my creativity was also something that was stolen from me through a sexual assault. And so having that creativity being one of my main modes of communication and the way in which I relate to the world, I almost killed myself over that. So I am very lucky to be alive and to be talking about this past and this story and this history. And most of the mistreatment that I endured was when people did not have any context for who I was. And I still struggle with how to relate socially with people, and people don't seem to communicate that with me directly sometimes. It's hard. It's hard. I feel like I constantly have to learn and grow on how I can coexist with others And, I'm learning to do that at my own pace. And so, as an autistic adult, I think it's my responsibility to be honest about those things that I went through. And then the diagnostic process essentially was I went and I did the assessment, and the lady was like, wow, your scores are so high, you shouldn't even be able to fucking talk. you know, you should be nonverbal. And this is when I realized that there are periods in my life where I am nonverbal and I do shut down. And I've forced myself to talk when I don't want to talk, and it causes a great deal of pain. And I've experienced like shutdown, and I've experienced these overwhelms and meltdowns, and I felt like a crazy person for it. But that wasn't like craziness. That was my autism, and that's okay. And so learning to navigate that and regulate my own emotions and know how much I can handle in my own limits, that is a skill that I have developed throughout my entire adult life. And so I expect that when I engage with professionals about my mental health and my well-being, that they treat me as an expert, because I have been the one who's been living with this brain, who has been hyper analyzing this brain ever since I was young. And I can speak with authority. I can know what I want. And I am not a fucking child, because I am 30 years old and I have just been diagnosed with autism in the last year. And I've just been diagnosed with hypermobility disorder in the last year. And that to me is just really symptomatic of problems in our society, that I had to carry the weight of these disabilities alone, and that they were never diagnosed. Even though I had kneecaps that dislocated, even though I tried to reach out for help, I was treated as if my creativity was a symptom, as if my ambitions were mania, as if my belief in myself was sickness. And then the doctor's like, why aren't you confident? Like, it seems like you just need confidence. And it's like, well, you're not treating me, you're not listening to me, you're not working with me to solve my problems. And so, like, I've been really fortunate in the last year to have a psychiatrist who is willing to work with me, as opposed to just telling me what to think, right? Like, I can almost guess which medications need to be tinkered up and down, because it's my body, it's my brain. We've been working on this together. So I can be like, I think it's this. And the doctor will be like, yeah, no, I agree. We probably need to lower that one or increase that one. And so patients do have the capacity to be experts on themselves and need to be treated with more respect in that regard. And I wouldn't be so quick to brush off people who, self-identify or speak up about being autistic, because you don't know the amount of trauma that they may have gone through that has forced them to mask to your standards, so much so that you can't see their autism anymore and their neurodivergence. And you have no idea how painful that type of existence is, and how deadly that type of existence is when you aren't able to be your full expressive self. And I'm also aware that it is also a privilege as a white person to be able to access diagnosis and treatment and stuff, because sometimes those traits, those autistic traits, they may be penalized differently, in a person of color and a black person, and how police treat people. There are intersections, right, that make it more complicated and harder to access those, or it may not be safe to identify with a disability or be vocal about a disability. And that will all be situational, person by person. Everyone has a different experience, needs levels of safety that are acceptable, boundaries that they're willing to push. But the reality is that we are all complicated human beings, and that you never know what is going on inside of another person. So if someone says that they are struggling with something, believe them. If you don't like the words they're using to describe their struggle, believe them. Because at the end of the day, the only way that they're going to find the right words is if you work with them to understand what that struggle is. And I'm just grateful because, even though that one doctor who did the assessment and tried to brush it all off, and tried to explain it away as being all these other things that are basically just traits of autism, she still included in her report, like, the assessment from my husband, the assessment from my mother, like talking about that this has been a consistent theme throughout my life, and it has impacted my relationships and has impacted my family. And so, showing that report to my psychiatrist, she's like, well, according to the screening, you got the thing. But at the same time, I still struggle to have confidence to even say it because of the amount of baggage and trauma that I carry from my past, from how people have been treated. And so I may not always use the word autism. I may not always say that I'm autistic. I may just say neurodivergence because that's a word I'm comfortable with. But to me, I think we should be accepting of everyone on the neurodivergent rainbow, everyone for their gifts and talents, for the way they see and experience the world, because I think that that is beautiful and unique to every single person, and that there is value in it that is innate, that cannot be quantified, that doesn't need to be quantified, and that we should just innately value. And so, as like a fundamental belief that I carry, I just wanted to express my love and my gratitude to everyone who has helped me in accepting my neurodivergence and who has been open about their own journeys and processes. And I offer this story kind of just as my own antidote to add to the voices, so that we can be stronger together. And so happy Autism Acceptance Month come April. And if you're looking to support different people, I'll be sharing in my story, different information as it comes up in my feed, different people that I follow that I think are really valuable and that are providing valuable information and insights. And if you want to support me as a creator, as an artist, I'm doing a crowd sale right now for my tarot deck, and I also have a Patreon where I am working out how to heal my artistic process, and I am sharing that journey as kind of a semi-public safe space. And so those are sort of two things that I'm working on, and the end goal is to reclaim my creativity and to reclaim my abilities as a writer. And I am very fortunate to be in a situation where I can do that. I can do that work, and I can heal that, and I can use my artistic talents to convey and communicate and use those as a tool for communication. So thank you for watching this little video. Much love. The world is a better place with everyone in it.